order of the House, the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Sanders, is recognized for 5 minutes.
I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, as I stand in the well of the House today, I think about the members of the United States Congress who in 1917 voted to take this country into World War I, a war which, it was said, would end all wars, but in reality accomplished nothing but the loss of millions of lives and perhaps accelerated the rise of Adolf Hitler. Mr. Speaker, today I think back upon the abdication of responsibility of the United States Congress during the Vietnam War and the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, passed unanimously by this House, but later regretted by many who supported it for the rest of their lives. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of the men and women of the United States Armed Forces who are, at this moment, putting their lives on the line in the Persian Gulf, and who have already performed with great courage and ability under fire. I rise today to condemn Saddam Hussein, the vicious dictator of Iraq, for his brutal invasion of Kuwait and for his bombing of Israel, and to demand Iraq's immediate withdrawal from Kuwait. I rise today to tell you that I voted against the resolution before us because I cannot indicate support for a president whose policies in the Persian Gulf are, to my mind, absolutely wrong and could lead to terrible loss of life for our young men and our young women, as well as for the people of the entire region. A policy which leads to unnecessary loss of life for young Americans and to terrible suffering for their families is not, to my mind, supporting our troops. Mr. Speaker, I fear that President Bush will interpret this resolution in the precise way that Lyndon Johnson interpreted the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, that is, in support of his policies in the Persian Gulf. Let us firmly support the young men and women in the Persian Gulf with all our hearts and all our abilities, but let us say no to the President's policy, which, from the beginning of this crisis, has been inadequate in attempting to resolve it in a nonviolent manner. Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely incomprehensible to me that with virtually every nation on earth united against Saddam Hussein, a two-bit dictator, that this crisis could not have been resolved without war. Mr. Speaker, even as the bombs are falling now on Israel, on Saudi Arabia, on Iraq, and on Kuwait, the United States Congress cannot abdicate its responsibility to do everything in its power to make every last possible effort to prevent unnecessary bloodshed and to support our troops in the most basic way by bringing them home alive and well. Let us ask the President to stop the bombing now, have the Secretary General of the United Nations go to Iraq immediately to negotiate a ceasefire and begin negotiations for the withdrawal of Iraq from Kuwait. Mr. Speaker, a few months ago, the entire world rejoiced that the Cold War had finally ended, and that the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars being spent on bombs and tanks and missiles could finally be used to improve human life, not to destroy human life. Mr. Speaker, a major war in the Persian Gulf, costing us thousands of lives and tens of billions of dollars, could well be a disaster for the people of our country, especially the working people, the poor people, the elderly, and the children. I predict that this Congress will soon be asked for more money for guided missiles, but there will be no money available to house the homeless. I predict that this Congress will soon be asked for more money for tanks, but there will be no money or effort available to develop a national health care system guaranteeing health care for all of our people as exists in virtually every industrialized nation on earth. I predict that this Congress will soon be asked for more money for bombs, but there will be no money available to reindustrialize our nation so that our working people can have decent paying jobs. There will be no money available for education and for our children, 25% of whom live in poverty. There will be no money available for the environment or to help the family farmer, many of whom are being forced off the land today in my state of Vermont and throughout the country. Mr. Speaker, I predict that in order to pay for this war, there will be more cutbacks in Medicare for the elderly and even an effort to cut back on Social Security payments. Mr. Speaker, I voted no on this resolution because this Congress cannot continue to abdicate its responsibility to the President. Rather, we must day after day do everything in our power to stop the violence and find a peaceful resolution